Legs take place from a more stable platform, which would be like firing a cannon from a battleship. Improved stability is created for the spine and lower extremities through the action of the transversus abdominis on the lower back and pelvis. As you can see in figure 3, when the belly button is naturally drawn inward by TVA contraction during efforts to stabilize, the two halves of the pelvis are drawn toward each other like a nutcracker. When the TVA contracts, the large sheet of connective tissue that attaches to the bony prominences of the lumbar spine are pulled upon from both sides, resulting in increased stability on both sides of the spine at once. Unfortunately, many people mistakenly believe that wearing a weight belt or lumbar corset will increase spinal stability. Weight belts and corsets are generally wide in the back, which reduces the natural range of motion of the lumbar spine. Restricting upper lumbar motion with a tight belt often exaggerates lumbar motion in compensation, usually at the lowest vertebral level, L5-S1. This area is already the most commonly injured segment of the lower back, as you can see in figure 3, B1, and B2. Regardless of how tight the belt, there is no way to create multi-dimensional stability of the spine because without inter-unit contraction, there is no stabilizing force on the spine. Therefore, any benefits gained by the belt may soon be lost due to injury and pain. This is why I always tell my clients, don't buy a girdle, build one. The deep abdominal wall, TVA, is ideally suited to perform the girdle-like supportive functions that allow you to have a flat stomach. The dreaded paunch belly is but one of the many ill effects of a dysfunctional abdominal wall. There are several reasons for paunch bellies, and the more advanced condition, viscerotasis, factors that can disrupt abdominal muscle function. Organs talk to muscles. Internal organs borrow their pain-sensitive nerve fibers from the muscular system. This means that when an organ is in pain, the brain can't determine if it's the muscle or the organ that hurts. The brain only knows which segment of the spine a piano key on the keyboard the pain message came from. In return, the brain then tells all the tissues and organs on that nerve channel to behave like they're in pain. Since pain always weakens muscles, the abdominal muscles generally lose tone and don't respond to exercise like a muscle that doesn't think it's in pain. Your body has many different reflex pathways. The segments of your spine are like the keys of a piano. Different organs, muscles, etc. will send messages to different segments of the spine and vice versa. If you have pain in your lower back, those pain signals may be sent to your digestive organs and abdominals as well. You may not necessarily feel pain in these areas, but the organs and muscles will behave like they are in pain and not function as they should. This may result in impaired digestion or abdominal weakness. Viscerotosis is when the organs or viscera drop or fall down from their optimal position. While this may sound like a radical concept, you're probably more familiar with the phenomenon than you realize. For example, when someone is about to have a heart attack, they don't feel pain in their heart, but rather on the left side of their chest and in the left arm muscle. Many women have pain in their back and sometimes down their legs during their menstrual period, not just in the area of their female organs. Further, people often suffer from back pain when they're constipated and find that a laxative or enema eliminates the pain. Organs talk to muscles all the time. We just have to learn to listen. Viscerotosis is a common problem, particularly among females. When the body's natural girdle, particularly the TVA, becomes defective, it can no longer support the internal organs. Constipation can cause the large transverse colon to become enlarged and heavy. If the abdominal wall is not able to provide support, the colon, liver, and stomach begin to droop, putting abdominal pressure on the rest of the digestive tract and the underlying uterus and bladder. This can lead to increased menstrual pain, incontinence, and prostate-related problems. Diet lifestyle. Consuming foods or drinks that you're allergic or intolerant to will affect your abdominal function. Anything that causes inflammation of an internal organ that communicates through the nervous system and controls an abdominal muscle will cause the muscle to weaken or be non-responsive to exercise. Other causes of inflammation in the organs that communicate with your abdominal muscles are stress, alcohol consumption, medical drugs, food additives, preservatives, and colorings. There is also suspicion growing among holistic-minded scientists and healthcare professionals that eating irradiated foods and foods that have been heated by microwave ovens cause inflammation in your digestive organs. Back pain. Nerves that feed the joints of the spine are branches of the nerves that feed the muscles around the spine. Therefore, anything that causes pain in the spine between the area near the bottom of your sternum and the bottom of your spine can stop the muscles from working correctly. It's also important to realize that this works both ways. If a muscle is in pain, those messages are sent to the related organs, resulting in the organs behaving as if it were in pain. Dirty machine tricks. I can't tell you how many clients I've had who just couldn't flatten their abdominal wall despite regular visits to the gym for months or even years. Many sought help with back pain, sacroiliac joint problems, or pain in the hip, knee, or ankle, while others were just frustrated because they couldn't get rid of their paunch belly. In many cases, these clients had logged hundreds of hours exercising on conventional gym machines, ab crunch machines, leg presses, hamstring curls, knee extension, butt blaster machines, etc. Looked great on the outside to the untrained eye, but could not eliminate their paunch. This happens in part because your nervous system, in its effort to stabilize the spine, doesn't want to do any more work to activate the deep abdominal muscles than it has to. After all, how much stabilization do you need when you're bolted to the floor and wearing a seatbelt? Your brain only activates the muscles in direct relation to the demand. The machine's resistance challenges the outer unit while doing a great job of stabilizing the load with large bolts, pins, and rails. The result is a massive recruitment of the big muscles with relatively little, if any, significant contraction of the smaller stabilizer muscles crossing the working joints. The dirty trick is that though some of your muscles get stronger on the machines, your stabilizer system does not get equally as strong. You probably won't be able to lift anything close to the same weight with a barbell or dumbbells that you can lift on a machine. If you lift the same amount, your form will most likely be poor due to lack of support from your undertrained stabilizer muscles. The appearance of new, bigger muscles from working out on the machines may provide false confidence until you try to pick up the equivalent free weight, a squirming child, or a heavy power tool. In any of these cases, you're likely to get hurt because you can't stabilize your spine or the extremity joints being used. Though the body has a number of neurological stopgaps to prevent such an injury, in many instances the person with an unbalanced muscular system can generate enough force in a short enough time that the nervous system can't react. The result is injury. This is but one of many reasons I suggest that you do not use gym machines. Instead, stick to free weights and other forms of functional exercise. Note, I consider dumbbells, barbells, and cable machines such as the lat pull down, low row, and cable crossover machines to be free weights because they allow unrestricted motion in any direction. The outer unit. The outer unit is comprised of those muscles that are best designed to move the body. These muscles are generally larger than those in the inner unit, usually across multiple joints, and are easily seen on the surface of the body. Bodybuilders focus on training these muscles because they're visible and are generally larger than the inner unit stabilizer muscles. Outer unit muscles are like the engine in your car, and the inner unit muscles are like the suspension system and the bolts that hold the frame together and the wheels on. It doesn't really matter how strong your engine is if your frame breaks or your wheels fall off. To better understand how the inner and outer units interact, follow along as I walk you through Figure 6. Imagine your body is a pirate ship. If the mast were comprised of 24 mobile segments like the human spine, you need a series of little muscles to hold them together so the mast could stand upright. Now consider that the large guy lines holding up the mast of the pirate ship are the large outer unit muscles. If you tighten the big outer unit muscles through exercise without proportionally tightening and strengthening the little inner unit muscles along the spine, the mast would eventually collapse. The mast of this pirate ship represents your spine. A. Rectus abdominis. B. Internal and external obliques. C. Erecta spina. D. Segmental stabilizers. Guy wire A represents your erectus abdominis. If you perform too many crunches and sibs relative to extension exercises, your mast will begin to bend forward. This is why so many so-called fit people have such poor posture. Testing and integration of your inner and outer units. To find out if your inner unit is functioning correctly and to determine where you should start with your core conditioning exercises, complete the following tests. If you do not pass any of the tests, you will need to practice either the test or the other recommended exercises. These exercises will help you regain proper core function. Once you can easily perform the test exercises correctly, you are ready to move on to the more advanced core conditioning exercises in Chapter 8. Core function tests. Prone TVA activation test. Lie face down with a blood pressure cuff placed under your belly button. Exhale, then inflate the cuff to 40 millimeters Hg. Relax your body and draw your belly button upward off the cuff. Do not let yourself cheat by pressing on the floor with your shoulders, knees, or feet, or by tucking your tail under. Simply draw your belly button in. The goal is to increase the pressure in the cuff by at least 10 millimeter Hg. If you cannot do that, you will need to practice the 4-point tummy vacuum exercise. Try this test each week until you're successfully able to pass it. Forward bend test. Cut a section of string long enough to tie around your waist. Stand upright, take a deep breath, and draw your belly button inward. With your belly button drawn, tie the string around your waist. It should feel tight if you let your stomach hang out. Place an object in front of you. A weight one that you can pick up comfortably but is not too light is ideal. Now bend over and pick up the object. Repeat a few times and notice what happens around the string. If you feel the string around your waist tightening or staying the same, your TVA is most likely not activating. You should feel the string loosen as you bend forward and your TVA turns on to stabilize the spine as you bend and lift the weight. If you do not pass this test, practice the 4-point tummy vacuum and progress to the Swiss ball exercises. As your performance improves with the lower abdominal exercises, you should practice wearing the string around your waist in the house or even at work. This will serve as a reminder to properly activate your TVA before picking up or moving any object. When this becomes automatic, you could stop using the string. Lower abdominal coordination test. Lie on your back with your knees fully bent. Place one hand under your lower back or both if more comfortable. Then bring your feet off of the floor. Tilt your pelvis backwards and flatten your back against your fingers. Hold pressure, keeping the bony prominences of your spine on your fingers as you lower your feet to the ground. Pay attention to the bones of the spine as they press your fingers, not the muscles for accurate testing. If you cannot maintain the pressure of your spine on your fingers as you lower your feet to the ground, you've lost the ability to coordinate pelvic stabilization along with leg movement. This is a common cause of low back pain. However, you can retrain your abdominal muscles by performing lower abdominal 1, 2, and 3. Core conditioning exercises. 4-point tummy vacuum. Assume a kneeling position with your hips over your knees and your shoulders over your hands. With your spine in neutral alignment, take a deep breath in and let your belly drop toward the floor. Exhale and draw your belly button in toward your spine while keeping your back in the start position. Hold with the TVA activated for as long as you comfortably can. When you need to breathe in, relax your abdominal wall as you inhale and repeat the exercise for 10 repetitions. Lower abdominal 1. Lie on the ground with your knees bent and feet flat on the floor. Place a blood pressure cuff under your low back, directly underneath your belly button. Pump the blood pressure cuff to 40 millimeter Hg. Exhale, draw your belly button in toward your spine and gently increase pressure on the blood pressure cuff by rotating your tailbone toward the ceiling until the blood pressure cuff reaches 70 millimeter Hg. Hold this position for as long as is comfortable, up to 10 seconds, then rest for 10 seconds. Repeat this 10 times. While performing this exercise, try to relax the entire body while holding the needle at 70 millimeter Hg. This includes your jaw, neck, shoulders, trunks, and legs. Lower abdominal 2. Lie on the ground with your knees bent and feet flat on the floor. Place a blood pressure cuff under your low back directly underneath your belly button. Pump the blood pressure cuff to 40 millimeter Hg. Exhale, draw your belly button in toward your spine and gently increase pressure on the blood pressure cuff by rotating your tailbone toward the ceiling until the blood pressure cuff reaches 70 millimeter Hg. Raise one foot off the ground until your thigh is perpendicular to the floor, keeping the needle of the blood pressure cuff at 70 millimeter Hg. Place the foot back on the ground and perform the same movement with the other leg. Alternate legs, performing 12 to 20 repetitions. If you have difficulty keeping the needle on 70 millimeter Hg, try using smaller leg movements. When it becomes easier to perform this exercise, straighten the lifting leg for an increased challenge. Lower abdominal 3. Lie on the ground with your knees bent and feet flat on the floor. Place a blood pressure cuff under your low back, directly underneath your belly button. Pump the blood pressure cuff to 40 millimeter Hg. With your knees bent, raise both legs off the ground until your thighs are perpendicular to the floor. The blood pressure cuff should reach 70 millimeter Hg. Exhale, draw your belly button in toward your spine and slowly lower your one leg to the ground while keeping the needle on 70 millimeter Hg. Raise your legs back to the starting position and perform 12 to 20 reps. If you have difficulty keeping the needle on 70 millimeter Hg, try using smaller leg movements. When it becomes easier to perform this exercise, straighten your leg for an increased challenge or lower both legs at the same time. Remember to keep your body relaxed. Chapter 8. Functional exercises. The term functional exercise has unfortunately fallen prey to the same abuse as the term natural and is quickly losing its meaning in the exercise industry. I interpret functional exercise to mean any exercise that works to achieve a chosen goal or objective. If you found that you were unable to achieve optimal performance in the prone TVA activation test, forward bend test, or the lower ab coordination test, your first objective should be to restore function to the abdominal wall by assuring that your brain is communicating properly with your inner unit and that your inner and outer units work synergistically together. You can safely move into the primal pattern exercises, which will serve as the foundation for your future exercise programs. Primal pattern movements. Once your inner and outer units are functioning correctly, it's time to discover primal pattern movements. Primal pattern movements are the 7 key movements that I feel were necessary for survival in our developmental environment. In other words, if you couldn't correctly perform these 7 movement patterns quickly and effectively without thinking about what your body was doing, you probably wouldn't survive in the wild. Even though our lifestyle is very different for our developmental ancestors, these 7 movement patterns are still key to performing daily tasks and staying injury-free. Squat. Early man had to squat to move heavy objects, build shelter, and eat. Today we still have to squat to sit on the toilet or a chair and get in and out of cars. Many of us continue to lift heavy objects on the job or in the gym. Bend. In order to build shelter, prepare food, and lift objects, early man would have used a bend pattern. Today, the bend pattern is most often used by construction workers, nurses, parents picking up their kids, or golfers dressing the ball. Like all primal pattern movements, bending is still required in our daily activities, and if you can't do it correctly, your chances of injury escalate.